In the 9th month of her pregnancy with her first love's child, my fiancée, Chloe Sterling, finally sensed something was wrong. She asked her brother, "I've been so focused on the baby lately. Has Ethan been causing any trouble?" Her brother was baffled. "Ethan publicly called off the engagement a long time ago. He even packed up all your things and had them sent back. You didn't know?" The woman froze, her face turning deathly pale. She had no idea that on the day she was discharged from the hospital, I had overheard her conversation with her brother. "Chloe, are you insane? Did you really go behind Ethan's back and give his bone marrow to Caleb Vance?" Brandon Sterling had stormed into the room, pointing an accusing finger at Chloe as she sat on the sofa. Chloe tilted her head up, her beautiful face contorted in frustration. "Brandon, only Ethan's marrow was a match for Caleb's," she said, her voice laced with resignation. "I had no other choice." Brandon snatched my medical report from the table, the one detailing my 6-month hospitalization for a severe infection, and his voice shook with rage. "No other choice? You knew Ethan wasn't in good health, but you lied, telling him it was a minor stomach issue, and made him take this risk. What has Caleb done to you? Does he have some kind of hold on you? You got into a racing accident just to impress him and ended up paralyzed for 5 years, and Ethan was the one by your side through all of it. Now you're healed, Caleb gets sick and comes crawling back, and you deceive Ethan into donating his bone marrow? And now that Caleb's better, you're indulging his crazy idea to have a baby through IVF." I had just finished my discharge paperwork when I heard Brandon's furious words. My hand, braced against the wall, clenched into a fist. The smile on my face froze, and a chilling cold washed over me, as if I'd been plunged into an icy abyss. Just 30 minutes earlier, my doctor had given me the all-clear, saying the post-operative infection was gone and I could finally go home. In that moment of joy, Chloe had slipped into a wedding dress and proposed to me. I had cried with happiness, even posting on Facebook that it was the best day of my life. Inside the room, Chloe kept her head down, her dark hair shielding her eyes, her expression hidden from view. "Please, keep all of this a secret. Don't let Ethan find out. Caleb doesn't have much time, and his only wish is to hold his child before he passes. I can't let him die with that regret." Brandon's face was a thunderous mask, his eyes burning with fury. "And what about Ethan? Everyone in our circle knows he has been in love with you for 8 years. I remember it perfectly. 8 years ago, when Caleb was rejected by Ashley Prescott, you decided to get revenge for him by deliberately flirting with Ethan, just to spite her because she had a crush on him. Now you're carrying Caleb's child after being with Ethan for 8 years. What is he supposed to do?" Chloe looked down, and after a long moment, she spoke in a hoarse voice. "I have it all planned. Ethan will never find out this baby is Caleb's. As for the future, I've grown accustomed to having him around these past 8 years. I'll still marry him." I didn't stay to hear the rest. A nurse was heading toward the room, so I ducked my head and pretended I was just walking up. The two of them exchanged a look and fell silent. On the drive home, Chloe chattered on about wedding plans, but her words were just noise. Staring out the window at the city skyline rushing by, all I felt was a bone-deep chill. I was 15 when I first met Chloe, at a gathering for my parents and their business partners. That first sight of her, so cool and elegant, was etched into my memory. A year later, at 16, I entered a street race under the alias Polaris. I ended up saving her life that night, and so began my long, silent infatuation. When I was 20, Ashley Prescott started pursuing me. That same year, Chloe showed up at a party, and to my surprise, she asked for my number and added me on iMessage. I was so ecstatic I couldn't sleep. It was also that year I learned about Caleb Vance, her childhood friend. He was a free spirit who had dated a dozen other girls, but, for some reason, had never been interested in Chloe. At 21, Chloe confessed her feelings to him, and Caleb finally agreed to date her. At 22, she was in a horrific racing accident. The next day, the doctors announced she was paralyzed. The injury changed her, making her bitter and volatile. My parents were moving to New York, but I refused to go, choosing to stay in Chicago to take care of her. By 27, she had made a full recovery. Her grandfather, the head of the Sterling family, announced she would be his successor, and she was on top of the world. That same year, I collapsed at home. When I woke up in the hospital, they told me I had a severe stomach condition that required surgery. Looking back now, the perfect romance I thought I had was a lie from the very start. All those blood tests they ran on me in the hospital 6 months ago, the ones Chloe said were just routine checks, were a cover. She was tricking me into donating my bone marrow to Caleb. The Bentley glided into our gated community. At midnight, Chloe's phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. "My dearest Caleb." She quickly declined the call, her slender fingers tapping out a message. A moment later, she stood up and rushed out of the house. I walked to the window and watched as the Bentley disappeared into the darkness. I called my mother. Mom, I've made up my mind. I'll agree to the marriage with the Hayes family. In 7 days, the moment I land, I'll go with her to get the license. My mother must have sensed the pain in my voice. She comforted me gently. As long as you're sure, Ethan, our family isn't as powerful as it once was. This alliance is serious business. The Hayes and the Sterlings are based on opposite sides of the country, but they've been rivals for generations. They're like oil and water. If you marry into their family, they'll expect you to cut all ties with the Sterlings. I listened, my gaze dropping to the floor. 6 years ago, our family business had expanded, and my parents relocated the headquarters to New York, moving there permanently. But soon after, the company hit a financial crisis. The Hayes family, also based in New York, had proposed a marriage alliance several times, but my parents knew how much I loved Chloe and never considered using my marriage to save the business. Now, I wanted nothing more to do with Chloe. Marrying into the Hayes family was the perfect way out. I'm sure, I said firmly. I never want to see Chloe Sterling again. My mother was quiet for a moment before replying. All right, your father and I will speak with the Hayes family tomorrow. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning, Chloe still wasn't back. She sent a single text. Ethan, something came up at work. I'll be out of town for 3 days. I didn't respond. I booked my flight to New York for a week from today. Then I started packing. After years of living with her, I had accumulated a lot. With my family's finances in trouble, I listed anything of value online. That evening, a message from a stranger popped up on my ins. Hi, Ethan Miller. I clicked on the profile. The avatar was a picture of a positive pregnancy report from a successful IVF procedure. The username was Caleb's Joy. It was a new private account. He clearly didn't dare broadcast Chloe's pregnancy, and the account's only follower was himself. A minute later, he sent me a link to a TikTok he just posted. It was a slideshow of photos of him with Chloe at a prenatal appointment, captioned, "Her first time as a mom, she's a little excited." I saw right through his pathetic attempt to provoke me. I liked the video, then left a comment. So you take my bone marrow, get better, and now you come to taunt me? Caleb, how does it feel, profiting from my sacrifice? The next day, I said my goodbyes to my friends and dropped off my watch and limited edition sneakers with their new owners. On the way home, another TikTok from Caleb popped up. It was more photos, this time of him helping Chloe pick out maternity clothes. I went back to the first video and saw he'd replied to my comment. His tone was smug. I didn't ask you for your bone marrow. Chloe was so worried about me, she practically forced me to take it. I scoffed and replied with a middle finger emoji. On the third day, I sold everything I'd ever given Chloe. The designer bags, the jewelry, the shoes. Caleb posted another TikTok. This one showed him and Chloe booking a ridiculously expensive postpartum recovery suite. His caption was the most arrogant yet. All it took was a word to get my CEO girlfriend pregnant with my baby. Now I don't have to worry about a thing. Who's luckier than me? Chloe finally came home that afternoon. She looked around the half-empty bedroom, her eyes landing on the black suitcase by the door. Her brow furrowed. Why does it look so bare in here? And where are those bags I got you? Why did you suddenly buy a suitcase? I avoided her gaze and offered a lame excuse. Those bags were out of style, so I got rid of them. I was thinking about a vacation, but I changed my mind. She assumed I was just upset about her being gone for 3 days and pulled out a purchase agreement for a limited edition Lamborghini. I know I've been busy, so I ordered a new car for you. I'll go with you to pick it up. I stared down at the contract. I'm obsessed with cars, and this was the exact model I'd been wanting. She'd even had it customized in diamond black, my favorite color. For 8 years, she had always remembered every little thing I liked. If I hadn't overheard that conversation at the hospital, I would have been deeply moved. Thanks, I said, setting the contract aside. She frowned, then leaned into my arms. Are you still mad? There's a party tonight. Let's go out and have some fun. Before I could refuse, she had already pulled me by the hand and led me downstairs. We hadn't been driving in the Bentley for long when her phone rang. It was my dearest Caleb. I couldn't make out the words, only a frantic, "Chloe, help me." Chloe's expression hardened. She tapped her phone, pulling up Caleb's real-time location from some app, and spun the car around. Change of plans. Caleb's been kidnapped. I have to go save him. She drove like a maniac, blowing through a dozen red lights. 20 minutes later, she spotted the black sedan he was in. She narrowed her eyes and floored it. With a sickening crunch, she rammed into the back of the sedan. At the same instant, another car, clearly working with the first, slammed into my passenger side. I had no time to react. My head smashed against the window, and a searing pain shot through my skull. Warm blood trickled down my face, and the agony was so intense it felt like 1,000 needles stabbing into my brain, leaving me speechless. Despite the violent impact on my side of the car, Chloe didn't even spare me a glance. Her eyes were fixed on Caleb. She rammed the sedan 3 more times until it screeched to a halt. The men inside scrambled out and jumped into the other car, which sped away. Chloe threw her door open and rushed to Caleb. "Caleb, are you okay? Did they hurt you?" Caleb threw his arms around her, then showed her his bruised and swollen face. "It was some of my dad's business rivals," he said hoarsely. "They just punched me once. It's not a big deal." But the sight of him made Chloe's heart ache. "Not a big deal?" she cried. "I've had people watching out for you all these years. Even when you were away, you've never had to deal with anything like this. Chloe, you took so long. I was terrified I'd never see you again," he whimpered. "Don't worry, it's my fault. I'm taking you to get checked out right now." She helped him into the back of the Bentley and sped to the hospital in 5 minutes flat, rushing him into the emergency room. The entire time, she never once looked at me, sitting in the passenger seat with my eyes bloodshot and my head bleeding profusely. I watched them disappear into the hospital, my vision blurred with red. Forcing myself through the pain, I pushed open the car door and staggered toward the entrance. A sudden downpour started, but I didn't bother to shield my head, letting the cold rain sting my open wound. The triage nurse cried out when she saw me and immediately rushed me back for treatment and a series of scans. An hour later, weak and dizzy, I was finally done with the tests. I checked my phone and saw a dozen missed calls from Chloe. Without a second thought, I turned it off. Knowing I'd be on drip for hours, I asked the nurse for a private room. In a haze of pain, my mind drifted back. When Chloe was paralyzed, I often attended business functions in her place. I remembered one dinner where 2 CEOs got into an argument and flipped the table. A shard of a broken plate flew up and sliced my wrist. When Chloe heard, she rushed over, ordered her assistant to sever all ties with both companies, and then personally took me to the hospital to have the cut treated. I thought she was overreacting, but she soothed me with a soft voice. "Ethan, you're the most important person in the world to me. I can't bear to see even a single scratch on you. They say men are supposed to protect women, but I want to be the one who protects you." Now, here I was, covered in my own blood, and she hadn't even noticed, all because of another man. The woman who promised to protect me from a scratch had tricked me into a major medical procedure for him. She was even having his child while planning to marry me. Before I drifted off, I saw a new TikTok from Caleb's Joy. It was a video of Chloe, kneeling on the floor, washing his feet to help him relax and fall asleep. I watched it over and over, a sickening feeling growing in my chest. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning, I reluctantly returned to the house. As I walked in, Mr. Henderson, the butler, met me with a worried expression. "Sir, Miss Sterling is waiting for you by the pool. She's not in a very good mood." I headed outside and saw her consoling Caleb. He had his head bowed, the corners of his eyes were red, and he looked like the most wronged person in the world. When Chloe saw me, the anger she'd been suppressing erupted. A cold fury radiated from her. "Was it you?" she demanded. "Did you leak Caleb's location to his father's rivals?" I stopped in my tracks and looked over at Caleb, who was lounging on a patio chair. He tilted his head, a smug, triumphant smirk playing on his lips. It all clicked into place. I rubbed my temples, irritated. "I don't even know who his father's rivals are. How could I have possibly leaked his location?" Chloe's face was grim. She threw a stack of photos onto the table in front of me. "Then explain these. Photos of you meeting with them." I glanced down at the pictures, a chill running through me. They were from a few days ago, when I met the buyer for my watch at a coffee shop. It made sense now why the guy had been so agreeable, paying my asking price without any haggling. His only condition had been to meet at that specific cafe. My silence was all the confirmation she needed. Her face became a mask of ice. "Haven't I told you? No matter what rumors you hear, Caleb and I are just friends. Nothing more. I've only ever seen him as a brother, and he is a genuinely kind person. We've been together for 8 years, Ethan. You know how I've treated you. I just proposed to you and now you do this to him? How could you?" Her words were like needles in my heart. Our 8 years together. One of those was spent with her using me to get back at Caleb's ex. 5 of them were spent with me taking care of her after she was paralyzed. I was there for her darkest moments, the depression, the breakdowns, the nights she cried herself to sleep. And all of it, her injury, her pain, was because she'd gotten into that race to feed Caleb's ego. A fact she seemed to have conveniently forgotten. For 5 years, I did everything for her recovery. I secretly took physical therapy courses to learn the right techniques, and I massaged her legs every single day. When her depression was at its worst, I consulted the best therapists in Chicago to learn how to support her emotionally. and now it was as if none of it had ever happened. The irony was suffocating. I wanted to ask her, if Caleb was just a brother, then why was she having his baby via IVF? You're right, I said instead. How you've treated me and how you've treated him for the past 8 years. It's all become very clear to me lately. Her expression hardened. What is that supposed to mean? I didn't want to argue. I just pointed to the bandage on my head and gave a bitter laugh. When he was kidnapped yesterday, I was the one who ended up with 5 stitches in my head. Do you really think I'm stupid enough to get myself injured just to set him up? But even with the evidence right in front of her, her mind was already made up. Her loyalty was with Caleb. I looked at her clenched jaw and felt a wave of relief that in 3 days, I would be gone. Chloe, since you've already decided I'm guilty, just tell me what you want. It's not that I don't believe you, she said. It's just that I've known Caleb for over 16 years, and he's never lied. You upset him, Ethan, so you need to be the one to make it right. Just then, Caleb, who had been feigning distress, accidentally dropped the ring he was wearing into the swimming pool. Oh no, Chloe, he cried out. The ring you gave me, it fell in. Then he turned to me, a challenging smirk on his face. You know what? Forget about apologies. Just get that ring for me, and we'll call it even for everything you've done. Winter had just begun, and the pool water was icy cold. My head wound was still fresh. I looked at Chloe, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. She just sat there, her head bowed, tapping her long fingers on the table, completely ignoring me. In that moment, it felt like my heart was being pierced by 1,000 tiny shards of ice. I suddenly remembered something from 6 months after her diagnosis. Her grandfather had visited, and upon learning her prognosis was poor, he began considering other heirs. That night, Chloe vanished from her room. I found her at the shore of Lake Michigan, pushing her wheelchair into the churning, icy waves, letting the water rise to her chest. Terrified, I rushed to pull her back, but she shoved me away. Stop pretending you care. You're just my boyfriend, not my husband. You want me to listen to you? The waves are rough. Swim out and back, and I'll do whatever you say. I stared at her, stunned. I wanted to tell her I wasn't pretending, that I truly wanted to be her husband. So, even though I couldn't swim, I didn't hesitate. I turned and dove into the freezing water. The current was strong, and I was quickly pulled under, losing consciousness. The next thing I knew, I was looking up into Chloe's worried eyes. Her face was pale and taut with fear. Why didn't you tell me you can't swim? Are you insane? You jumped in knowing you couldn't swim. I looked up at her and said in a raw voice, Chloe, even if you never walk again, I still want to marry you. I love you more than you can possibly imagine. After that day, she never went near the water again. She even forbade the staff from filling the pool at home. It was only because I found it strange that she finally relented and had them maintain it. Remembering that, a humorless smile touched my lips. My face was a blank mask. You want me to get the ring? Fine. Without taking off my coat, I turned and jumped into the pool. The icy water shocked my system, and I started to tremble uncontrollably. As I sank, the old fear of drowning washed over me, but I clenched my jaw and refused to cry for help. Soon, a cloud of red began to spread in the water around me. My God! The butler shouted from the side. Sir, your head is bleeding. In a flash, Chloe threw off her jacket and dove in, pulling me to the surface. Enough! She yelled, her voice frantic. Why are you so stubborn? You could have just walked away. I tilted my head back, my eyes fixed on the glittering ring at the bottom of the pool. Didn't you want me to make him happy? I asked coldly. I'm sure your man is quite satisfied now. Chloe's beautiful face was dark with fury. How many times do I have to tell you? He's like a brother to me. The Vances are a prominent family in Chicago. What if word gets out about what you did? A scandal like that isn't easy to contain. I was trying to protect you by asking you to smooth things over. She said it with such sincerity, as if she was only thinking of me. I almost laughed. Worried about a scandal? She was the heir to the sterling fortune, and when she was paralyzed in a race she entered for Caleb, that story was buried completely. Caleb was a notorious bully with a terrible reputation, but he'd lived a charmed life under her protection. And their secret IVF baby? She'd managed to keep that under wraps just fine. But now, suddenly, she was worried about public opinion. It was clear where I stood. I was nothing compared to Caleb. I didn't want to speak to her anymore. I shrugged off my soaking wet coat and started walking toward the house. I only made it a few steps before the world went black. Chloe's face paled, and she rushed toward me. But just as she reached for me, Caleb doubled over, clutching his stomach. Chloe, he moaned, his eyes red-rimmed. My stomach is killing me. Help me get upstairs. Chloe froze. She pulled her hand back from me and turned to help Caleb instead. She let my head thud against the pavement and simply said to the butler, Mr. Henderson, take him to the hospital. When I woke up, the first thing I saw was a pair of worried eyes looking down at me. It was Chloe. She saw I was awake and rushed to get the doctor. Only after he confirmed I was stable did she finally relax. Then I noticed something on my left wrist, a string of prayer beads. It looked just like the one she always wore. Her assistant was there too, smiling. Sir, you were unconscious for a while. Miss Sterling was so worried. She put her prayer beads on you, the ones she's worn for over a decade. She even made a vow last night that if you woke up safe, she'd go vegetarian and give up drinking and smoking for life. I frowned, pulling the beads from my wrist and holding them out to her. Don't change your life for me. She didn't take them. Instead, she gently placed them back on my wrist. Ethan, she said softly, don't you remember making a similar vow when I was injured? I frowned. I did remember. In the second year of her paralysis, I'd heard stories about the old St. Jude's shrine being a place of miracles. I took her there one night, and I prayed, promising to give up anything and everything if she could just be healthy again. She had made a vow too, that in 5 years she would marry me. I remembered seeing her handwritten wish on the prayer card, and my eyes had filled with tears. She had held me and comforted me for the longest time. It was one of the few moments when I felt like I was the only person in her world. But that was the key, wasn't it? She only had eyes for me when Caleb wasn't around. Now that he was back, her focus was gone. I looked at her expectant face, waiting for my praise, and simply said, I'm tired. I woke again in the afternoon. I was about to get up and find a doctor to ask about my discharge when I heard voices in the hall. It was Chloe and her brother. So when are you and Ethan planning on getting married? Brandon asked. Chloe's reply was quiet. I brought it up with him. I'm thinking the end of the month. Brandon nodded. Make sure it's a huge wedding, and be generous with the dowry. The least we can do is treat him well financially after he donated his bone marrow for your friend. Then his tone shifted. Funny coincidence, though. I heard our rivals, the Hayes family, are also planning a wedding for their daughter. And the groom's name is Ethan Miller, too. At that, I pushed the door open. I cleared my throat, and their conversation came to an abrupt halt. The doctor discharged me that evening. When I got home, I had a friend request on my phone. The name was Sophia Hayes. Realizing this must be the woman I was supposed to marry, I accepted. Immediately, she sent me a document, a dowry list. It was pages long, filled with an itemized list of assets so extensive I couldn't even begin to process it. 2 more messages followed. This is my dowry. Let me know if it's acceptable. And then, my mother mentioned your flight is the day after tomorrow, arriving in the morning. She and I will meet you at the airport. I thought for a moment before replying, this is far too generous. You should reduce it. She didn't write back. Chloe spent the rest of the evening trying to make conversation, but I was distant and unresponsive. She assumed I was still sulking about the pool incident and, in an attempt to cheer me up, had her assistant arrange a bachelor party for the following night. The next day, our entire social circle showed up for what they thought was our joint bachelor and bachelorette party. As soon as I arrived, Chloe took my hand and produced 2 vehicle purchase agreements. She handed one to me. I felt like that last car wasn't quite right for you, she said, her eyes downcast. So I ordered you a new one. Then, she turned and handed the original Lamborghini contract to a dapper-looking Caleb. Caleb, this was meant for your future brother-in-law, but since he has a new one now, you can have it. I know it's not much, but I hope you like it. Caleb was overjoyed, barely able to contain his grin as he took the papers. Don't worry about it. Tonight is all about him. He said that, but anyone could see the truth. The Lamborghini she gave Caleb was a rare, limited edition model. The new car she'd gotten for me was just a standard, albeit expensive, sports car. The guests around us started whispering. Is she really marrying Ethan? This is supposed to be their party. Why is she giving Caleb a gift? It's just an excuse to give Caleb the limited edition car. Everyone knows how much Ethan loves cars. This is just a slap in the face. I heard Caleb is an incredible driver. A friend told me he's actually the famous underground racer, Heiress. That's why Chloe fell for him in the first place, because Heiress saved her life during a race. I sat in a corner, listening to the murmurs. I frowned. Heiress? But that was my alias. Before I could process it, a crowd had formed around Caleb, glasses raised, showering him with praise. Caleb, Chloe treats you so well, giving you a car like that. That white suit looks amazing on you, like a real prince. I hear you're a genius behind the wheel. Handsome and talented, you and Chloe are a perfect match. More and more people flocked to him, completely forgetting whose party it was. An hour later, the party was in full swing with karaoke and games. Chloe never left Caleb's side, her eyes following his every move. At one point, he stepped out to take a call and returned looking furious. Noticing his mood, Chloe leaned in and whispered patiently, "Hey, don't drink if you're upset. You're still recovering. When you're better, I'll drink with you." He ignored her, gripping his wine glass tightly. With a sigh, Chloe pulled an unlimited black card from her wallet and handed it to him. The black card caused an immediate stir. I guess she's still not over him. It's true what they say. The perfect boyfriend can't compete with the childhood first love. As the gossip swirled, I sat quietly in my corner, scrolling through my phone, pretending the party had nothing to do with me. Caleb scanned the room, his eyes landing on me. He sauntered over, a smug look on his face. "It's your party, but I seem to be the center of attention. Everyone's fawning all over me. That must really bother you. But what can you do? You can spend 5 years taking care of her, but the second I show up, you know who she'll always love more." I knew he was trying to get a rise out of me, but ever since that day at the hospital, I had stopped letting them affect me. My indifference seemed to anger him. His eyes narrowed, then darted to the watch on my wrist. A flicker of jealousy crossed his face before he suddenly snatched it from me. "Are you crazy? What are you doing?" I tried to get it back, but he held it tight. He ran his thumb over the watch face, his eyes filled with envy. "I hear this was a gift from Chloe's father, for his future son-in-law." I stared at him, about to say something, when he suddenly shoved the watch into his own mouth, deliberately tearing the corner of his lip until it bled. As blood trickled down his chin, he stumbled backward and collapsed onto the floor, letting the watch clatter beside him. He looked up at me, his eyes wide and tearful. "Ethan, I just wanted to look at the watch. Why did you shove it in my mouth? It hurts." Before I could even process what was happening, a dark blur shoved me hard. I slipped on a spilled drink and crashed into the table holding the enormous party cake. The impact split the wound on my head back open, and I could feel fresh blood trickling down. The cake toppled over, covering me in frosting. My head throbbed, and I looked up to see Chloe rushing over. She didn't even glance at me. She went straight to Caleb, dabbing the blood from his lip with a handkerchief, her eyes filled with pity and concern. And I finally understood his little performance. I wiped the frosting from my face, picked the watch up off the floor, and held it out. Just as Chloe, thinking I was about to start a fight, opened her mouth to yell at me, I grabbed Caleb's wrist and fastened the watch around it. "A gift from Mr. Sterling. You seem to like it so much. It's yours." Caleb stared at me, momentarily forgetting his act. Chloe frowned, confused. "That was a gift from my father. It's meant for the future son-in-law of the Sterling family." I got to my feet. "He touched it," I said coldly. "It's tainted. I don't want it." Then I turned and limped out of the party, not caring what their expressions were behind me. I could feel Chloe's cold stare on my back as I left. She came home late that night. After getting ready for bed, she slipped under the covers and sighed at my turned back. "Don't be angry, and please stop picking on Caleb. He really respects you and wants to get along. He's going to stay with us for a few days to try and smooth things over. So please, just be nice to him." I kept my eyes closed, not turning to face her. "If," I said calmly, "and this is just a hypothetical, if Caleb wasn't Polaris, would you still treat him this well?" She took my hand. "He's like a brother to me," she said softly. "I care about him because he's Caleb, not because of who he is or isn't." I just murmured a quiet acknowledgement. It didn't matter. Only one more day. I just had to get through one more day. The next morning, I woke to the sound of sweet laughter from upstairs. I went to see what it was and found Chloe in the second-floor sitting room, teaching Caleb how to arrange flowers. They were standing close together as she gently showed him how to trim the stems. The domestic scene felt surreal. When she was recovering, I had taught her flower arranging to keep her spirits up. She was a quick learner, picking it up after just one lesson. After that, she had fresh flowers delivered every day, and the first thing she would do each morning was make an arrangement and place it by my bed. She hadn't done that once since Caleb came back. I lowered my gaze to hide the sadness in my eyes and headed downstairs for breakfast. I'd only taken a few steps when a heavy vase crashed down on my head, knocking me to the floor. A sickening crack echoed in my ears, and an explosion of pain made me curl into a ball as blood streamed from my scalp. Through a blurry haze, I saw Caleb strolling down the stairs, a wide grin on his face. "Oops, Ethan. I just wanted to show you my flower arrangement, but my hand slipped. Oh my, look at all that blood. It's quite frightening. I should probably call an ambulance, but I'm just so shaken up, I can't seem to hold my phone. You don't mind, do you? Just hang in there." I passed out before he could finish his sentence. It was one of the housekeepers who found me and rushed me to the hospital. I woke up around noon, took 30 stitches to close the gash on my head. The doctor said I had a concussion and was experiencing temporary blindness in my right eye. Chloe was at my bedside, her face a mask of concern. She gently helped me sit up and drink some water. Her actions were caring, but her words were all for him. Caleb feels terrible about what happened. He's so racked with guilt he nearly fainted. A tabloid photographer snapped a picture of you being brought in, so now we have to do damage control. Just tell everyone you slipped and fell. That way, the Vances will owe you a favor. And Caleb is Polaris. He saved my life. I turned away from her and pulled the covers over my head. I wasn't sure what hurt more, my head or my heart. My eyes burned with unshed tears. I remembered a time when I was constantly sick with low-grade fevers, and she had hired 3 private doctors to be with me around the clock. Once, I ate something too spicy and it triggered my stomach condition, and she stayed home from work all day just to comfort me. The woman standing before me now was a stranger. She must have seen my shoulders shaking because a pained expression crossed her face. She started to reach for me, but a nurse hurried into the room. "Miss Sterling, the man who was with you earlier just collapsed. You should probably come see." Hearing that, Chloe forgot all about me and rushed out of the room. The room was quiet again. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Caleb's Joy. 30 stitches and a blind eye, so what? I don't have to say a word and she comes running. I was gone for years, Ethan. I came back, said I wanted a baby, and now she's pregnant. Tell me she doesn't love me. A few minutes later, he sent a video. It showed Chloe at his bedside, her eyes red with concern. "Don't blame yourself," she was saying. "I told you I'd always protect you. Ethan's head injury isn't that serious. He won't tell anyone it was you. You've been so stressed lately, don't worry about this." I watched the video, my nails digging into my palms. Then, I forced myself out of bed and walked out of the hospital. 6 hours until my flight. I went to the St. Jude's shrine and took down the prayer card I had written all those years ago, the one where I wished to marry Chloe. As a cold wind swept through the chapel, 2 other cards fluttered from the board and landed at my feet. They were the ones she had written. I picked them up and read them. The first said, "In 5 years, I will be Ethan Miller's bride." The second said, "As long as you come back, I will always choose you." I looked at the cards and let out a bitter laugh. "Congratulations, Chloe. You got exactly what you wished for." I returned to the house. My phone was still buzzing with taunting messages from Caleb. I ignored them, sat down at my desk, and wrote a farewell letter. Beside it, I left a photograph of myself as Polaris. Then, I grabbed my suitcase and went downstairs. I took off the engagement ring she had given me at the hospital, placed it in its velvet box, and handed it to Mr. Henderson. "When Ms. Sterling returns, please give this to her, and tell her there's a letter for her on the desk in the study." He had seen me remove the ring and his eyes widened in shock. "Sir, what are you doing?" "Thank you for everything these past few years, Mr. Henderson. Goodbye." I gave him a small wave, then hailed a cab to the airport. An hour later, my best friend Mike was seeing me off at the terminal. "Ethan, once you go, don't look back," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Build a good life for yourself in New York, and stay away from Chloe Sterling." I hugged him, my eyes burning. I took one last look at the Chicago skyline and lifted my chin. Goodbye, Chicago. I'm never coming back. Meanwhile, Chloe had spent the entire day in Caleb's hospital room, coddling him through his tests and meals. My room was just 1 floor below, but she never came to see me. That evening, Caleb's results came back. He was perfectly fine. Relieved, Chloe took him back to the house and patiently settled him into bed. When she finally came downstairs, Mr. Henderson approached her with the velvet box. "Sir returned yesterday," he stammered. "He asked me to give this to you." Chloe took the box, her expression souring. "He left the hospital?" I told him to stay and rest. Why would he come home? Is he trying to cause more drama? I already told him nothing is going on between Caleb and me. She opened the box and saw the engagement ring. She froze. "Sir also said he left a letter for you," the butler added quietly. "It's in the study." A sense of unease washed over her as she went upstairs. There on the desk was a single envelope. The letter was titled "Farewell." A terrible premonition seized her. She read every word, and when she finished, her world shattered. An overwhelming panic consumed her. He had heard everything. He had heard her conversation with Brandon at the hospital. Her carefully constructed web of lies had been torn apart. She fumbled for her phone to call me, but her eyes fell on the photograph I had left on the desk. It was a picture of a young man in a red racing suit, sitting in the driver's seat of a race car. He had pulled down his mask and was grinning at the camera, flashing a peace sign. It was me. Wait, that face. It meant that I was Polaris. I was the one who had saved her life on the racetrack, the one she had been trying to repay all these years. Impossible. Her hands shaking, she dialed my number. "The number you have dialed is no longer in service." She tried sending me an iMessage, but my account had been deleted. Every attempt she made to contact me failed. Desperate, she called my friend, Mike. He ignored her first 3 calls, but finally picked up on the 4th. Mike was clearly annoyed by the interruption. "Ms. Sterling," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" She ignored his tone. "Is Ethan Polaris?" Mike let out a cold, mocking laugh. "Chloe, are you telling me you're just figuring that out now?" Chloe frowned. "He never told me." Mike's voice was incredulous. "When would he have had the chance? For the past few years, all of your attention has been on Caleb. When have you ever shown any real interest in Ethan?" He hung up. Chloe stared at her phone, her mind reeling in panic. 12 years ago, Caleb had come to her and claimed to be Polaris. He knew all the details of the rescue, and since they were childhood friends, she had believed him without question. She knew I loved cars, but she'd never once suspected that I was a racer. She thought back to the day she was finally able to walk again. She had stood up, hugged me, and whispered, "Ethan, thank you for saving my life." I had smiled at her and said, "That makes twice now." She had been about to ask what I meant, but then Caleb had called, and the moment was lost. The realization that she had been deceived for 12 years filled her with a blinding rage. She stormed into the guest room and shook Caleb awake. As he blinked at her sleepily, she threw the photograph in his face. "Caleb Vance," she hissed, "how dare you lie to me?" Caleb, still groggy with sleep, saw the fury in her eyes and scrambled to pick up the photo. He stared at it, his initial confusion turning to a deep, burning jealousy. Impossible! A guy like Ethan Miller could never be Polaris. Back then, even at 16, Polaris was already a legend in the Chicago racing scene. Chloe leaned in close, her eyes blazing. "I've confirmed it. Ethan is Polaris. You've been lying to me all this time." She remembered that day at the track. Her car had been sabotaged by a business rival and had burst into flames. Polaris, who had been in the lead and about to win a $1 million prize, had abandoned the race to pull her from the wreckage. He had looked at her, a cocky grin on his face, and said, "Hey, I saved your life. You owe me. You owe me." She had held onto those words for 12 years, never imagining she had been repaying the wrong person. The thought made her sick. She shoved Caleb away from her. "Get out," she said, her voice dangerously low. "Go back to your family's house. Now." Ignoring his desperate pleas, she ordered the butler to have him removed, then called her assistant. "I want you to investigate Caleb's supposed kidnapping," she said, her tone like ice, "and everything that happened at the party. JFK Airport, New York." As soon as the plane landed, I put on a beanie to cover the bandages on my head. My parents were waiting for me at the arrivals gate. Standing beside them was an elegant woman I didn't recognize, dressed in a pale blue dress. My mother's face lit up when she saw me. "Ethan," she said, her voice warm, "this is Sophia Hayes." I took a moment to study my fiancée. She had flawless skin and delicate features, highlighted by the warm airport lighting. A faint, polite smile played on her lips, but there was a certain reserve about her, a sense of distance. "Hello, I'm Ethan Miller," I said quietly. Her eyes scanned over me, lingering for a moment on my beanie. "Sophia Hayes," she replied after a beat. "Your fiancé." An hour later, our car pulled up to the city clerk's office. Sophia's parents were already waiting outside. Mrs. Hayes beamed when she saw me, her approval obvious. I was tall, well-dressed, and polite, the perfect son-in-law. Her smile widened. "I've had my secretary transfer a portion of the Hayes family stock into your name," she said, as casually as if she were offering me a cup of coffee. A small welcome gift from myself and my husband, but I knew it was anything but small. The Hayes Corporation was a titan in the industry, and their stock was worth a fortune. I started to refuse, but Sophia spoke up. "It's a gift from my parents, Ethan. Please accept it." "Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Hayes," I said, my voice thick with emotion. To be treated with such generosity and respect from the very beginning was overwhelming. I thought of the watch Chloe's father had given me, a gift I had earned through 5 years of thankless caregiving. The Sterlings had always looked down on me, especially as my family's fortunes declined. They had often said they wished Chloe would marry into a more powerful family to secure her own position. "Shall we?" Sophia said, gesturing toward the building. "Yes." I followed her inside. 15 minutes later, it was done. I stared down at the marriage certificate in my hand, feeling a strange sense of detachment. Sophia's voice broke through my thoughts. "I've purchased a townhouse in the city for us. I just sent you the address and the security codes. It's part of the dowry, and the deed is in your name only. You should stay with your parents for the next few days to settle in. The wedding will be in 2 weeks. We can discuss the details later." I checked my phone, and sure enough, the address and codes were there. She was far more thoughtful than I had expected, even giving me space to reconnect with my parents. Looking at this kind, considerate woman, I felt for the first time that this impulsive marriage might not be a mistake after all. Our families had lunch together, and the atmosphere was warm and easy. Later that evening, my parents cooked a huge welcome-home dinner. My father, happy and a little drunk, became talkative. You know, it's funny how things work out with the Hayes family. We barely knew them at first, but over the past few years, they've helped our business out of several tight spots, both publicly and behind the scenes. If it weren't for them, the Miller Corporation wouldn't have survived. I was surprised. The Hayes family has been helping us? The next 3 days flew by. On the 4th day, Sophia came to pick me up. As I said goodbye to my parents, my mother patted my shoulder and whispered, "I can see it in her eyes, Ethan. Sophia really likes you. Give her a chance." I looked over at Sophia, who was waiting by the car. Her expression was as placid as ever. It didn't seem like she liked me at all. The drive was silent. We didn't exchange a single word until she pulled up in front of a hospital. "Are you sick?" I asked, confused. Her eyes went to my beanie. "You're the one who's injured. We're getting you checked out before we go home." I was taken aback, a warmth spreading through my chest. "How did you know?" I had been so careful to hide it, even my parents hadn't noticed. She turned to look at me. "An educated guess," she said. "At the airport, your whole outfit was perfectly coordinated, except for the oversized beanie. It didn't match. Then, when you got in the car, you barely tapped your head on the doorframe, but I saw you flinch like you were in serious pain." My eyes widened in disbelief. "Sophia Hayes, you don't miss a thing. We went to a private clinic, where a doctor was waiting for us." He looked from Sophia to me and back again. "You told me to be here first thing in the morning," he grumbled good-naturedly. "And you only show up now. Wait a minute, don't tell me this is the one you've been dreaming about all this time." Sophia cut him off with a sharp look. "My husband, Ethan Miller." The doctor immediately clammed up. He gave me a thorough examination, and at Sophia's insistence, he was incredibly gentle when he redressed the wound on my head. An hour later, the results were in. The doctor pulled Sophia into the hallway, his expression serious. "Sophia, your husband's injuries are severe. It's not just the head trauma and the temporary blindness in his right eye, which thankfully is improving. The wounds on his scalp don't look like they're from a single accident. They look like they were inflicted multiple times, deliberately. I had a colleague in Chicago pull his recent medical records, and something isn't right. The medications he was on don't align with a simple post-op infection. Based on my experience, I'd say it's highly likely he was unknowingly prepped for a bone marrow donation." A cold fury rose in Sophia's chest. She took out her phone and made a call. "I want to know everything that happened to Ethan Miller in Chicago recently," she said, her voice low and dangerous. The next morning, her assistant called. "Ms. Hayes, I've compiled the full report on Mr. Miller's recent activities. I've just sent it to you." Sophia sat in her study, reading the report, her face growing colder with every page. The Hayes and the Sterlings had been rivals for generations, but she had always stayed out of the family feud. This, however, was different. This was about her husband. "The Sterlings are bidding on that port contract," she said into her phone. "Outbid them. I don't care what it costs." Her assistant was silent for a moment. "Ms. Hayes, are you saying you want to declare open war on the Sterlings?" Back in Chicago, Caleb, now living back at his parents' house, had been bombarding Chloe with messages, begging for her forgiveness. She hadn't responded to a single one. Undeterred, he found her at her favorite bar, dressed to the nines, and slid into the seat next to her, putting his arm around her. "Chloe," he purred, "I've missed you." She turned, and the moment she saw his face, she shoved him away with such force that he stumbled and fell to the floor. "Get away from me," she spat, her voice filled with disgust. He reached for the table to steady himself but ended up knocking over a bottle, which shattered on the floor. The sound drew the attention of everyone in the bar, many of whom were people he had looked down on for years. They started to snicker. Humiliated, Caleb scrambled to his feet and stormed out, his eyes burning with shame. The next morning, Chloe reviewed the file her assistant had prepared. Her face was a mask of cold fury. Caleb wasn't Polaris. He was a cruel, malicious liar who had taken my bone marrow and then repeatedly tried to harm and frame me. She couldn't imagine what I must have gone through. If she had been in my shoes, she would have lost her mind. A dangerous, icy rage settled over her. After a long time, she finally calmed down enough to pick up her phone. She opened her iMessage conversation with Caleb and typed, "I'm at the house. Get over here. Now." He replied instantly, his excitement palpable even through text. "Chloe, you've forgiven me? I'm on my way." She didn't look at her phone again. Instead, she ordered the staff to fill the pool and dump in several bags of ice. Half an hour later, Caleb arrived, looking smug and confident. He was wearing a crisp white shirt, an outfit he knew she found irresistible. As he approached her, she swirled the wine in her glass and gave a slight nod. Two of her bodyguards stepped forward and grabbed him by the arms. "Mr. Vance, Miss Sterling would like you to join her by the pool." Their grip was painfully tight. He had never been treated this way by her staff. "Let go of me," he snarled. "What do you think you're doing? I'm going to be your boss's husband." The bodyguards' faces were impassive. They dragged him to the edge of the pool and shoved his head under the water. The icy shock of it made him gasp, inhaling a lungful of freezing water. The cold and the shock cleared his head instantly. She was still angry. "Chloe, I thought you weren't mad anymore," he sputtered when they pulled him up. "I was going to tell you I wasn't Polaris as soon as I got back, but Ethan has been making my life hell, and I was so upset I forgot. You saw what he did. He set up that kidnapping, and he attacked me at the party." His voice trembled, and he tried to look pitiful. Chloe set her wine glass down, her face a blank mask. She walked over to him and raised her hand slightly. The bodyguards understood and hauled him to his feet. He thought she was softening, but then she let out a cold laugh, lifted her stiletto, and brought it down hard on his head. "Still trying to blame Ethan?" she said, her voice dangerously low. "It's over, Caleb. I know everything." Her words were like ice, each one a dagger to his heart. He began to tremble, a paralyzing fear taking hold of him. How could she know? But then he remembered. Even if she knew, what could she do? She was carrying his child. She was pregnant with his baby. She could punish him a little, but she wouldn't do anything serious. The thought gave him a surge of confidence. As she pulled her foot back, he grabbed onto her leg, his voice breaking with a sob. "Chloe, I only did it because I love you. I was just so desperate to be with you, to have a future with you." She lifted her foot again, this time using the pointed toe of her shoe to tilt his chin up. Her eyes were filled with loathing. "You took his bone marrow, and then you had the audacity to taunt him and hurt him. You are rotten to the core, Caleb. The sight of you makes me sick." She nudged his face with her shoe. "You like making people fetch things for you, don't you? That ring you threw in the pool is still down there. Go get it." He stared at her, water dripping from his hair onto the pavement. He looked utterly pathetic. "Chloe, after all these years we've been together, doesn't that mean anything to you?" She almost laughed. "Our past? If you hadn't lied about being Polaris, I would have never given you the time of day. You ruined my life, Caleb. You ruined everything I had with Ethan. And you think I'm just going to forgive you?" She turned to her bodyguards. "What are you waiting for? Do it." The bodyguards threw him into the icy water. He could swim, but the cold was paralyzing. After a few minutes, he was shaking violently. He managed to paddle to the edge of the pool, but as his fingers gripped the side, Chloe brought her heel down on them with all her force. He screamed in pain, his face white, and his grip gave way, sending him back into the water. A few moments later, he lost consciousness. Chloe watched him sink, a small measure of the rage inside her finally subsiding. "Ethan," she thought, "do you see? I've gotten revenge for you. Please, come back to me." Half an hour later, Caleb was in the hospital. At the same time, Chloe was in another hospital in a different part of the city. She had made an appointment. She was terminating the pregnancy. As the anesthesia took hold, she drifted into unconsciousness. When Caleb found out about the abortion, he realized he had lost his only leverage. He went berserk, destroying his hospital room. The nurses couldn't control him, so they called Chloe. "Ms. Sterling, you need to get here. He's going to tear the whole place apart." He didn't think she would come, but a few minutes later, she was there. She was pale and clearly in pain, but her eyes were like steel as she surveyed the wrecked room. "I still have a couple of things to settle with you," she said, her voice cold. "I was going to wait until you were feeling better, but you seem to have plenty of energy." Her voice was calm, but he saw the look in her eyes and was terrified. All the fight went out of him. "I'm not better yet," he whimpered. She walked to his bed and tilted his chin up. "At the party," she said slowly, "you tore your own lip to frame Ethan, and you dropped a vase on his head." She clapped her hands, and her two bodyguards entered, carrying a large crate. They opened it to reveal 10 heavy vases and a box full of men's watches. Caleb saw them and began to shake, his face ashen. He scrambled out of bed and fell to his knees in front of her. "I'm sorry. I was wrong," he begged, banging his head on the floor. "I'll apologize to Ethan publicly. I'll get on my knees and beg for his forgiveness. Chloe, please, for the sake of our friendship, let me go." "Let you go?" she said, looking down at him, her eyes devoid of any warmth. "A verbal apology isn't enough, Caleb. You need to experience exactly what you put him through. Only then will you have the right to ask for his forgiveness." She glanced at her bodyguards. One of them tied his hands while the other grabbed a handful of watches and forced them into his mouth. He struggled, but they kept pushing them in until both corners of his mouth were split and bleeding. Blood dripped from his chin onto the floor. His eyes were red with pain and terror. In the past, she would have been frantic at the slightest sign of his discomfort. Now, she sat on the sofa, watching him suffer without a flicker of emotion. "All right," she said. "Time for the next item on the list." Worried the hospital room ceiling wasn't high enough, she had them take him back to the house. They brought the crate of vases to the second-floor landing, leaving Caleb alone in the foyer below. One of the bodyguards lifted a vase and dropped it. It crashed onto Caleb's head with a sickening thud. His scream of agony echoed through the house as his scalp split open and blood began to pour down his face. The bodyguard, his face impassive, dropped another vase, and then another. Caleb screamed until he was hoarse, but Chloe never looked his way. After the 10th vase, he finally passed out. She looked up from her phone. "Send him home," she said. Just as Caleb was being carried out, Brandon arrived. He looked at his sister, sitting impassively on the sofa, and his face was grim. "I have bad news, Chloe. You need to prepare yourself. Ethan isn't coming back. He's getting married. The man Sophia Hayes is marrying is our Ethan Miller." Her eyes flashed with anger. "Impossible," she snapped. Brandon showed her a photo on his phone. It was a paparazzi shot of me and Sophia at lunch. She was leaning over, gently dabbing at my face with a napkin. "He's in New York? I'm booking a flight right now." Brandon grabbed her arm. "Have you been paying any attention to the business lately? The Hayes family just outbid us on the port contract." It was a warning shot, Chloe. "Are you really prepared to go to war with them over Ethan?" She looked down, her face etched with pain. "Brandon," she said, her voice raw, "I'll lose my mind without him." Her brother sighed and said no more. Meanwhile, in New York, I had started taking over the family business. The first few weeks were a blur of long days and sleepless nights. But I'm a quick study, and with Sophia's guidance, I soon found my footing. I began reviewing our company's financials from the past few years and noticed a disturbing pattern. Several of the failed projects that had nearly bankrupted us were linked to subsidiary companies owned by the Sterling's extended family. Sophia came into my office just as I was piecing it together. "What's wrong?" she asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I pointed to the contracts on my desk. "I don't understand. Why would Chloe's uncles and cousins actively try to sabotage my family's company?" Sophia picked up the files and read through them, her expression hardening. "The Sterlings are notorious for their internal power struggles. They probably assumed you were going to marry Chloe and wanted to weaken your family to ensure you'd have no influence. Chloe must have known your family was struggling," she added, "but it seems she never bothered to look into it." I gave a bitter laugh. Of course she hadn't. All her time and energy were focused on Caleb, sending him money and managing his life from afar. She had no time to worry about my family. It just proved my parents had been right about her all along. Sophia spent the rest of the afternoon helping me analyze our investment data. By the end of the day, I finally had a clear picture of the situation. "We should take our wedding photos tomorrow afternoon," she suggested. "Can we do it the day after? I have a business meeting tomorrow." "Of course," she said. We had been getting along surprisingly well. Sophia was emotionally intelligent, and she made no secret of her growing affection for me. It was a comfortable, easy feeling, a world away from the constant, unreciprocated effort I had put into my relationship with Chloe. Meanwhile, Chloe had arrived in New York. The first thing she did was hire a private investigator to find out about my new life. That evening, she read the report, her face a thunderous mask. It said that Sophia and I were living together, that we left for work together every morning and came home together every night. We were inseparable. She read the report again and again, then threw it on the table in a fit of rage. But then, a flicker of hope. The report didn't mention a marriage license. She still had a chance. It had only been a few days. He wouldn't have been that impulsive. She immediately contacted the CEO of a company that was scheduled to have a meeting with me the next day. She made him a deal. He would bring her to the meeting, and in return, she would personally guarantee his company's success back in Chicago. The next morning, Chloe dressed carefully in a chic gray suit, checking her reflection multiple times before she was satisfied. At the Miller Corporation headquarters, I had just finished my morning briefing when my secretary reminded me, "Mr. Miller, the CEO of the U Corporation is here for your 10 o'clock meeting. He's waiting in the conference room." "Thank you." I took a sip of coffee, gathered my files, and headed to the conference room. Inside, Chloe was waiting nervously, staring at a picture of me on her phone's lock screen. She heard footsteps approaching, and the door swung open. Her world seemed to stop as she looked at me. I was wearing a sharp black suit, my hair newly cut, a professional smile on my face. "Ethan," she breathed. Before I could even process her presence, she had thrown her arms around me. The scent of her perfume filled my senses as she clung to me, her voice trembling. "Ethan, I finally found you." I was about to push her away when another pair of hands pulled her off me. It was Sophia, who had stopped by to bring me some fruit. Sophia pulled me behind her, shielding me. She faced Chloe, her eyes like chips of ice. "Chloe Sterling," she said, her voice dangerously low. "After everything you've done to him, you have some nerve showing your face here." Chloe stared, about to launch into an explanation about mistaken identities, but I cut her off. "Wait, Sophia," I said, my voice cold. "Let me handle this. This is my office and my employees are right outside. I won't have my personal drama become a public spectacle." I turned to the CEO who had brought her, my face a mask of stone. "Mr. Yu, as of this moment, the Miller Corporation will no longer be doing business with your company. You can see yourself out." Sophia added, her voice just as cold, "The Hayes Corporation will also be terminating all contracts with you. Goodbye." The CEO's face went white. My secretary gestured for him to leave. Soon it was just the three of us. Chloe looked at me, sitting beside Sophia, and her eyes fixed on my cold, impassive face. A sharp pain shot through her chest. I used to look at her with so much love. After a long silence, Chloe finally spoke. "Ethan, I terminated the pregnancy, and I made Caleb pay for what he did. Please, will you come back to me?" Sophia let out a quiet, derisive snort. The Sterlings truly had no shame. I looked at her, my expression unmoved. "We're finished, Chloe. You read my letter." Her eyes filled with tears. "Don't you love me at all anymore?" she asked, her voice breaking. "No," I said, my voice flat. "The love I had for you died the moment I found out you tricked me into giving my bone marrow to Caleb. The week after that was just me detaching. By the time I wrote that letter, I was done. I never wanted to see you again." She was the first woman I had ever truly loved. Growing up seeing my parents' happy marriage, I naively believed that if you gave someone your whole heart, they would do the same. It would be a lie to say I never loved her. I stood by her through 5 years of hell, but just when we were about to get married, she chose him, and she hurt me again and again. What she did was unforgivable. Now, the thought of her just makes me feel sick. I hadn't raised my voice, but my words seemed to drain all the color from her face. "Chloe, it doesn't matter what you do or say. I'm never coming back. We missed our chance. From now on, we're strangers." Without waiting for her reaction, I took Sophia's hand and walked out of the room. Chloe watched me go, my back turned to her. She started to follow, but my secretary blocked her path. She could only stand there and watch us leave. Sophia stayed with me in my office for the rest of the day. When we left that evening, Chloe was waiting, and she tailed our car all the way home. I ignored her. That evening, our butler approached us with a tablet, looking troubled. "Sir, madam, there's a woman kneeling outside the front gate. She's holding some papers and refuses to leave." I glanced at the security feed. It was Chloe. She was holding a stack of purchase agreements and a small sign that read, "Ethan, I ordered 3 of your favorite cars. Please forgive me." 2 people with her were holding a large banner that read, "Please give your EX a second chance." I frowned, feeling nothing but annoyance. "Ignore her," I told the butler. The next morning, the sky opened up in a torrential downpour. Chloe was still out there, soaked to the bone, looking pathetic and stripped of all her usual pride. I walked out of the house and got straight into Sophia's car. She watched as our Porsche pulled away, her eyes filled with a desolate loneliness. It used to be that the slightest hint of sadness from her would send me into a panic. Now, she had been kneeling in the rain for hours, and I hadn't even given her a second glance. So much had changed in just a few weeks. Back at the office, after my morning meeting, my secretary came in with a vehicle purchase agreement. I felt a flash of irritation, assuming it was another stunt from Chloe, but my secretary was smiling. "This just arrived for you, Mr. Miller, from Ms. Hayes." My phone buzzed. It was a text from Mike. "Dude, Sophia is incredible. She called me to ask what your dream car was. I told her you've always wanted a Pagani, thinking it was a long shot, and she ordered one for you without even blinking. She's really into you, man." I snapped a picture of the contract and posted it to Facebook. The caption, "Cool car, even cooler woman." That afternoon, Sophia and I went to a bridal shop for our wedding photos. Chloe followed us in. "Ethan," she said, her eyes red-rimmed, "why did you accept her car, but not mine?" I looked at her, a sarcastic smile on my face. "Because I told you I never wanted to see you again. That includes your gifts. Besides, wasn't it always your dream to marry Caleb and have his children? I'm out of the way now. What's stopping you?" I had only recently found out that even while I was taking care of her, She had been sending money to Caleb overseas. Such devotion. It was truly touching. The light seemed to go out of her eyes. She stepped forward, reaching for me. Ethan, it was all Caleb's fault. He lied to me. He told me he was Polaris. That's the only reason I was so good to him. I thought he was you. Now I know the truth. It's always been you. Can't we try again? Her voice broke. Remember how happy we were? For a second, I was lost in the past. Her parents had never approved of me. They wanted her to marry someone from a more prominent family. I had spent years trying to prove myself worthy, constantly worried that I wasn't good enough, that she would leave me for Caleb, that her family would never accept me. I stepped back, out of her reach. Chloe, it doesn't matter whether Caleb lied to you or not. The fact is, you are not a faithful person. I took care of you for 5 years. 5 years of my life. And the moment you were better, the moment Caleb came back, you went behind my back and risked my life for him. You are cruel and selfish. You don't care about anyone but yourself. You manipulated me, lied to me, and then you proposed because you wanted to have us both. How could I ever love someone like that? She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Her shoulders slumped, and she looked utterly defeated. I turned my back on her and went inside with Sophia to continue our photo shoot. That night, Mike video called me. Ethan, have you seen the news? He said, pointing his phone at his computer screen. The headline read, Vance Corporation on the brink of collapse. Patriarch sells son to save business. Mike shook his head. Caleb's father is something else. After the Sterlings cut ties with them, all their other investors pulled out. The company is just an empty shell. So, to save the family, he's literally auctioning off his own son. The starting bid is $1 million. I heard Caleb tried to run away a few times, but his father always catches him. I looked down, my voice flat. What goes around comes around. I don't feel sorry for him at all. What he's going through now is nothing compared to what he put me through. If I hadn't been lucky, I could have died from that donation. Back in New York, Chloe hadn't given up. She started a daily live stream from 9 to 11 a.m., titled Winning Back My Ex. The story of the Sterling CEO chasing her lost love went viral, and her streams quickly drew hundreds of thousands of viewers, all curious about our story. To prove her sincerity, she told her audience the entire story of why I left. But their reaction was not what she had hoped for. Instead of offering her advice, most of them took my side. Honestly, I'm Team Ethan. What she did is unforgivable. Ugh, why is this toxic garbage on my feed first thing in the morning? They're both crazy. They deserve each other. The comments were brutal. Chloe, her face pale, somehow managed to get through the 2-hour stream. The next day, her audience was waiting. As soon as she went live, she made an announcement. She would pay $1 million for any suggestion that successfully helped her win me back. At first, people were skeptical, but knowing how rich the Sterlings were, the tone of the comments quickly changed. He's heartbroken. You need to experience the same pain you put him through to understand. Yeah, punishing Caleb isn't enough. You were an accomplice. She needs to make a grand, public apology. That's the only way. Chloe took the suggestions seriously, picking 5 she thought might work. Then, for the next 2 weeks, she disappeared. People assumed she had given up, but then she went live again. The woman on the screen was almost unrecognizable. Her head was wrapped in bandages, and her face was ghostly pale. It turned out that during her 2-week absence, she had systematically put herself through every single thing she had put me through. I finally understand, she said, her eyes red-rimmed as she looked into the camera. I understand why he was so determined to leave. I am so sorry. Her extreme actions earned her a grudging respect from the public, and the tone of the comments began to shift. I mean, she's a powerful CEO, and she's willing to do this to herself to get him back. She must be serious. It's good that she's trying to make amends. I think I can forgive her. I don't know. A friend of mine says Caleb has been getting into trouble for years, and Chloe has always been the one to bail him out. And that was while Ethan was taking care of her. Sounds like she's been playing them both for a long time. But that last comment was quickly buried under thousands of others. Soon, people were shipping us, creating a couple name for us and posting clips of her reminiscing about our good times together. I saw all of it. I couldn't believe she was trying to use public pressure to force me back to her. So I created a new social media account. My first and only post was a picture of my marriage certificate with Sophia. The caption read, "Busy and hopeful." The post immediately went viral. Chloe was in the middle of a live stream when her comments section exploded. Ethan and Sophia are married. Wait, Sophia Hayes? The Ice Queen. She got married. OMG. Sophia posted too. She said she's so happy to marry her childhood crush. So romantic. The comments hit her like a bolt of lightning. Her mind went blank. With a trembling hand, she pulled up the trending topic on Twitter. The sight of our marriage certificate was like a bucket of ice water, chilling her to the bone. But still, she looked into the camera and said, "It was just an impulse. I'll wait for the divorce." When Sophia heard that, she decided she'd had enough. She had tolerated Chloe's online antics because she knew I no longer loved her. But the words "I'll wait for the divorce" were a declaration of war. The Hayes Corporation announced that any company that broke its contract with the Sterlings would be offered a new, more lucrative contract with them. Chloe retaliated, undercutting Hayes-affiliated businesses at every turn. Their feud became the talk of the business world. "I hear it's all over a man. The two biggest families in the country are at war, and all the smaller companies are reaping the benefits. It's so out of character for the Hayes family. They're usually so composed. Well, what would you do if someone was trying to steal your husband?" The feud escalated, and word finally reached old Mr. Sterling. Furious, he left his retirement home, chartered a private jet, and flew straight to Chloe's office in New York. He found her on the phone, in the middle of a bidding war with Sophia over a small, insignificant company. It wasn't about the business. It was about the principle. He stormed into her office and brought his cane down hard on her back. "You foolish girl," he roared, "starting a war over a man. You've destroyed the last shred of civility between our families." He was so enraged he could barely breathe. His health had been failing for the past year, and he had finally retired, entrusting the family empire to the younger generation. He had placed his highest hopes in Chloe, his favorite grandchild, giving her more power than anyone else. Even when she was paralyzed, her business acumen had been unparalleled. When he heard what she had been doing, he had nearly had a stroke. Chloe lowered her head, her eyes filled with sorrow. "Grandfather, I'm sorry, but I can't give up on Ethan." He hit her again. "Kneel," he commanded, his voice shaking with a rare display of emotion. "Our families have been rivals for a century, but we have always maintained a level of decorum. We kept our distance, but we never stooped to this level of public humiliation. And now you are tormenting that poor Miller boy in front of the whole world. You have brought shame upon this family." She had been running on less than 2 hours of sleep a night, consumed by her feud with Sophia. The blows from the cane made her dizzy, and she nearly collapsed. But she ignored the pain, knelt before her grandfather and begged, "Grandfather, please, ask Ethan to meet with me. He's too kind-hearted to refuse you." He looked at his proud granddaughter, kneeling before him for the first time, and a complicated expression crossed his face. "If I do this for you, you will have to give up your position as my heir. Are you willing to pay that price?" Without a moment's hesitation, she nodded. "Yes." He took a deep breath. "All right," he said. She bowed her head to the floor 3 times in gratitude. But as she tried to stand, the exhaustion and the pain were too much and she collapsed. She had always been so strong. It was a shock to see her so frail. A pang of pity shot through him, and he ordered his butler to take her to the hospital. As she lay unconscious, she dreamed. She was back at the St. Jude's Shrine 5 years ago. She threw her arms around me as I was writing my prayer card. "Ethan," she said urgently, "let's go get our marriage license right now. We can have the wedding tomorrow." I shook my head and pushed her away. "I don't want to marry you. You'll only betray me. I'm going to make a wish that we never see each other again, in this life or the next." She trembled, grabbing my hand, her eyes pleading. "I won't. I've changed." She reached for me, but I stepped back, gave her a cold smile, and dissolved into smoke. She cried out in anguish, a pain more real and sharp than any she had ever felt. When she opened her eyes, the smell of antiseptic filled her nostrils. Her grandfather was sitting by her bed. "I spoke to Ethan," he said, his voice raspy. "He agreed to meet with you, but only if Sophia comes with him. He's busy for the next couple of days. The meeting is set for noon, 3 days from now." He paused, his eyes narrowing. "Are you sure you want to do this? If you go, I will make the announcement immediately. You will no longer be the heir to the Sterling Corporation. Chloe, you are fickle and obsessive. You are not fit to lead this family." It was the second time he had asked. She knew the consequences, but her answer was the same. "Grandfather, I have to see him. I'll die without him." "Very well." That night, Mr. Sterling made the official announcement. Chloe was no longer his heir. I was having dinner with Sophia when Mike called. "Ethan, did you hear the news? Old man Sterling just disinherited Chloe. He must be furious with her." I paused, my spoon halfway to my lips. When Mr. Sterling had called me that morning, he had been surprisingly humble. He had apologized for Chloe's behavior and had asked me, as a personal favor, to meet with her one last time so she could finally get some closure. I knew that if I didn't agree, the feud between our families would only get worse. So I had agreed on the condition that Sophia be there. I hear that when he was young, Mr. Sterling single-handedly saved his family's company from bankruptcy, I said quietly. He's a very shrewd man. He sure is, Mike agreed. Oh, and get this. Caleb's father sold him for $7 million to some rich cougar in her 50s. She's apparently not much to look at, but she's loaded. They forced him to marry her. I heard he had a complete meltdown at the city clerk's office. They even had to call the cops. Someone got a picture of him sobbing outside. He looked so pathetic, you almost felt sorry for him. I guess she has a thing for tragic figures. Before I could respond, Sophia placed a piece of chicken on my plate. Pathetic people have a way of bringing things on themselves, she said calmly. He may be crying now, but I suspect he'll have plenty more to cry about in the future. The meeting was in 3 days. In the meantime, Chloe was busy. To prove her sincerity, she had her lawyers draw up a contract. With a single signature, all of her personal assets, her real estate, her cars, everything would be transferred to me. She also spent time researching all my favorite things, making detailed notes. By the 3rd day, she was ready. She dressed with care and accompanied her grandfather to the meeting at a 5-star hotel. She waited anxiously by the door, clutching the purchase agreement for a new Bugatti. When the door opened, Sophia and I walked in, hand in hand. We were both wearing understated, coordinated gray outfits, and we looked happy. I nodded a polite greeting to Mr. Sterling as I sat down. Chloe stared at my impassive face, a sharp pain seizing her chest. When had I stopped smiling at her? She pushed the transfer agreement across the table, along with a handwritten list of all my favorite things. Ethan, she said, her voice hoarse, I've changed. I'm begging you, please, give me one last chance. I glanced at the handwritten list, then picked it up and tore it into pieces. This paper is destroyed now, I said coldly. Can you put it back together exactly as it was? Her hands clenched into fists. People make mistakes, she whispered, her voice trembling. Can't you give me a chance to make it right? I don't want to, I said calmly. You're not worth it. Chloe, I truly did love you once, but I don't anymore. I may seem easygoing, but once I make up my mind about something, I don't change it. Even if I had never met Sophia, I would have chosen to be alone rather than go back to you. The color drained from her face. For the sake of the 5 years I spent taking care of you, I said, my voice softening slightly, please, just leave me alone. Let's not see each other again. I turned to her grandfather, who had been silent the entire time. Mr. Sterling, I've said what I needed to say. Sophia will call off the war with your company. I trust you will honor your side of the agreement as well. I had made 2 conditions for this meeting, that Sophia be present, and that Mr. Sterling would ensure Chloe never bothered me again. The old man looked at me, a flicker of regret in his eyes. He was a shrewd judge of character, and he knew that with me by her side, Chloe could have taken the Sterling Corporation to new heights. But it wasn't meant to be. He took a thick envelope from his coat pocket and handed it to me. Ethan, congratulations on your marriage. A small gift. I looked at the envelope, my eyes stinging. In all my years with Chloe, her grandfather and her brother were the only members of her family who had ever treated me with genuine respect. I accepted the gift. Thank you, Mr. Sterling. I'm afraid we have another engagement, so we must be going. He nodded, a heavy sigh escaping his lips. We had only taken a few steps down the hall when Chloe came running out of the room. Ethan, she called after me, can I have one last hug? I frowned, about to refuse, when a figure lunged out from a nearby doorway. It was Caleb. His face was a mask of rage. He was holding a bottle, and with a guttural scream, he threw its contents at my face. It was acid. Sophia, who had been settling the bill with a waiter a few feet away, cried out and started to run toward me. But Chloe was closer. In a single motion, she threw herself in front of me, taking the full force of the acid on her back and head. It ate through her clothes and skin in an instant. She let out a piercing, agonized scream. I stood frozen for a second, then lunged at Caleb, my fist connecting with his jaw. Are you insane? I roared. You tried to throw acid on me. If she hadn't been here, I'd be disfigured for life. Be disfigured for life. Caleb's face was already swelling from the punch. He stared past me at the injured Chloe, his voice trembling with disbelief. Why did you do that? I was aiming for him, not you. I frowned and hit him again, harder this time. Just you wait. The Sterlings will destroy you, and so will I. The paramedics arrived quickly. As they were loading Chloe into the ambulance, she looked at me, her eyes red with pain, and whispered weakly, Ethan, after this, can you forgive me? I looked at her, covered in chemical burns, and opened my mouth to answer, but before I could say a word, she passed out. 3 days later, I heard that Chloe was not doing well. The acid had hit the back of her head and neck, and she had developed a severe infection. She was in the ICU, fighting for her life. As I'd expected, Mr. Sterling didn't let Caleb off the hook. He hired the best lawyers in the country and was pressing charges. I also flew back to Chicago and, with the housekeeper's testimony, filed my own charges against him for the vase incident. In the end, Caleb was sentenced to 30 years in prison. After everything that had happened, I was in no state to plan a wedding. Sophia understood completely and announced that we were postponing it. A few days later, I got a call from Mr. Sterling. His voice, old and frail, trembled over the line. "Ethan, you should come see Chloe. She's not going to make it." My mind went blank. I turned and looked at Sophia, completely lost. Sophia saw the conflict in my eyes and put a comforting hand on my arm. "You should go," she said gently. "Whatever happened in the past, she saved your life. If you don't go, you'll regret it." The whole drive to the hospital, I stared out the window, my thoughts a tangled mess. I didn't love Chloe anymore. I had even started to hate her, but she had saved my life. In her private hospital room, I looked down at the woman in the bed. She was frail and withered, her face so pale it was almost translucent. Her breathing was shallow and weak. But when she saw me, a small smile touched her lips. It was the first time she had smiled in days. She beckoned me closer and patted my hand, her voice barely a whisper. "Ethan, don't cry. I'm so sorry for everything I did wrong. I'm truly sorry. Please don't blame yourself for this. If it's okay, could you hold me one last time?" I leaned down and gently wrapped my arms around her frail body. "Don't die," I choked out. "Your grandfather needs you." She gave a faint laugh, her gaze drifting to Sophia standing in the hallway, then back to me. "Congratulations on your wedding, my Ethan," she whispered. "I truly hope you'll be happy." I walked out of the room with tears streaming down my face. Sophia was waiting in the hall and pulled me into a hug as I started to shake. "Don't blame yourself," she murmured. "This isn't your fault." That night, the Sterling family released a statement announcing that Chloe had passed away. 3 days later, Sophia and I attended her funeral. We stood amongst the mourners, both dressed in black. I looked at her casket, my eyes burning. "Find a better man in your next life," I whispered. "Chloe, I truly hope you find happiness." 6 months later, Sophia and I had our wedding. She had spent 2 months planning it, and the entire venue was decorated with a subtle racing theme. Following my wishes, she kept the guest list small, inviting only our closest family and friends instead of a crowd of business associates. During the reception, Sophia's father came over and clapped me on the shoulder, a warm, satisfied smile on his face. "Sophia told us the other day that because of everything you've been through, you might not be ready for children right away. She asked us not to pressure you, and said you two would figure it out together." I turned to look at my wife. She was radiant in her white dress, and when she saw me looking, she gave me a soft, loving smile. A warmth spread through my chest. "Dad," I said, "I've put the past behind me. As for children, that's a decision I'll make with Sophia, whenever she's ready." When I went over to my mother, she was already dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief, overcome with emotion. "I've been picturing this day since you were 3 years old," she sobbed. "But now that it's here, I still can't believe my little boy is all grown up." Even my father, usually so stoic, had tears in his eyes. I had to laugh. Most parents cry when they give away a daughter, but mine were crying because they were gaining one. The news of our wedding went viral, and social media was flooded with well wishes. "I heard she was his childhood crush. That's so romantic. I'm so jealous. He deserves it after what he went through." It takes a lot of courage to walk away from an 8-year relationship, no matter how toxic it was. "She's so thoughtful." I heard she designed the whole wedding around his tastes. Crying in single again. "Hey, you guys, Ms. Hayes is doing a cash giveaway on Venmo to celebrate. Go get it." A week later, Sophia went with me to the state penitentiary. After a brief meeting with the warden, I was led to the visitation room. Caleb was brought in wearing a standard prison jumpsuit. He was gaunt, with sunken eyes and dark circles that made him look 20 years older than he was. When he saw it was me, his eyes filled with rage. He looked me up and down, searching for any sign of weakness, any flaw he could latch onto. But there was nothing. Thanks to Sophia's love and care, I radiated nothing but pure, unadulterated happiness. He couldn't find a single thing to criticize. His hands clenched into fists at his sides, his face contorted with resentment. Why was he rotting in here for 30 years while I was out here free and thriving? I saw the envy in his eyes and decided to twist the knife. I held up the latest financial report for the Miller Corporation against the glass. "See this? In just 1 year, I've turned the company around. We're profitable again." Then I pulled out my phone and showed him a picture from my wedding. "And speaking of good news, Sophia and I got married last week. I really have you to thank for that. If it weren't for your tireless TikTok updates, I might never have found the resolve to leave Chloe. And now I'm married to my childhood dream girl. The whole world is happy for us. My voice was dripping with smug satisfaction. Sophia looked at me, a fond, indulgent smile on her face. She'd never seen this vindictive side of me before, and she found it surprisingly endearing. Caleb looked like he was about to explode with jealousy. In his mind, he was superior to me in every way. He had been the one to leave Chloe, and I was just the placeholder who had gotten lucky. So why would Chloe take a face full of acid for a pathetic doormat like me? And why would a woman like Sophia Hayes ever want to marry me? He narrowed his eyes and sneered. You can brag all you want, Ethan, but you can't change the fact that I have your bone marrow inside me. I'm alive because of you. I bet that eats you up at night, doesn't it? A flash of anger crossed Sophia's face, but I squeezed her hand gently to calm her. I turned back to Caleb, a slow smile spreading across my face. The fact that you have no remorse actually makes this easier. I heard you've been having a tough time in here. There's a certain large inmate I was thinking of having a little chat with after this. I could ask him to look out for you. Before I could even finish, the color drained from his face. You wouldn't dare, he hissed. I just looked at Sophia, and we shared a smile. We had done our research before coming. We knew Caleb wasn't popular. When the other inmates found out he was in for attacking a woman with acid and betraying the man who saved his life, they had ostracized him. The large inmate I mentioned had a particular fondness for humiliating him, often forcing him to mime a dramatic car race for the cell block's entertainment. You call yourself Polaris? Let's see you race. And every time, Caleb would meekly get up and perform. I smiled. Oh, I would absolutely dare. You'd better take care of yourself in here, Caleb. I'll be back to visit every few months. Ignoring his frantic shouting, I turned and asked the warden if I could have a word with an inmate named William Green. That night, Caleb's performance was given a new set of requirements. The large inmate, William Green, pointed at him and bellowed. Mr. Miller told me Polaris can do a perfect drift and can pass anyone on a hairpin turn. You're Polaris, right? Show me. 3 years later, Sophia went into labor. I paced outside the delivery room, clutching a bouquet of sunflowers. 5 hours later, a nurse wheeled out the bassinet. Neither I nor my mother even glanced at the baby. My mother grabbed the nurse's arm, her voice tight with anxiety. My daughter-in-law? Is she okay? The nurse, surprised by her fierce concern, smiled reassuringly. Don't worry, mother and son are both doing fine. She's right behind. When they finally wheeled Sophia out, I rushed to her side. Seeing her so pale and exhausted, my eyes filled with tears for the first time in front of her. Sophia, I said, my voice thick, I'm getting a vasectomy. We are never doing this again. Sophia's mother was crying too. That's right, no more. It was too hard on her. Sophia looked at me, her own eyes wet, and gave me a weak smile. Don't cry, Ethan. I leaned down and kissed her forehead. Thank you for our baby, I whispered. I love you, Sophia.